Well, we all know that words are important. That's obvious. But as I worked at Procter& Gamble with marketing and consumer research, it became crystal clear how important words are. As we would work on an advertising campaign, we could change one word or one phrase, and the response from consumers would be radically different. And it's that mindset that drove us to make sure we looked carefully at the words we were choosing to help bring you great success with this model. And we didn't just pick one word and settle on it. We looked at choices for words and tested those words and alternative to words. And even in the few years we've been doing this, sometimes we alter our words and modernize to find the ones that are really going to hit home. So we hope that given that background, you'll really work on using the language of modern learning. It starts with, well, let me give you an example. Manager comes up, standard order taker kind of thing. I'm having a problem with XYZ. Can you give me a training on XYZ? Standard conversation. Your response as a modern learning designer can be different. It can come back with, well, I'd love to give you a training, but I'd really prefer to give you something more. I'd like to give you something called a learning cluster. A learning cluster has multiple learning assets, and it includes training, and it's the modern way to do training. So would it be okay if I give you something more, if I give you a learning cluster? Now, most managers will brighten up and think a couple of different things through their head all at once. One, oh, something has changed. Learning clusters, that's new. That sounds rather professional. Maybe I can't do all the training myself these days. I'm going to have to rely on the professionals. Note how a change in word signals our brain to recognize something has changed. The next thing they're going to probably hear is assets. Assets. Usually I hear people talk about assets when they talk about finance. So, that probably is a good thing. I'd like some assets, learning assets. Okay. And the next thing they're going to think is more. I can get more than just training. I didn't know that. I'll be the first kid on my block to have more. Yes, I want a learning cluster. So you can see how these words can really signal change or a change management approach to what you're doing. So start using the word learning cluster, learning asset. The next one is encourage your team to start, instead of talking about target audience, talk about learner personas. A target audience is one thing, and we describe a target audience so that we can find enough common characteristics in that group that we can even begin to wrap our arms around a design of a single learning asset for that large group. Instead, if we start using learner personas, we've got 3 to 5 different people that we're trying to solve for, trying to help them with their learning. Now, these personas, it's a marketing thing that we've converted over to a learning approach. And a learner persona, as I say, there'll be 3 to 5 of them. We give them names, and this humanizes them, and it helps our instructional designers feel like they're really working with individuals, solving their needs, and they can take greater pride in knowing that they're going to solve the needs for those individuals. So we encourage you to use the modern learning language, and as you hear people talk about learning cluster design, learning assets, learner personas, you're going to know that you're talking to a professional who is in the modern learning industry.